I never thought I would be writing something like this, but I need to get this off my chest. My whole world has fallen apart in the span of a week. My wife Deborah, 29F, and I, 31M, have been married for 5 years, together for 8. We met during our junior year of college at a mutual friend's party. She was studying art history while I was doing accounting. From the moment we started talking, we just clicked. She was this bright, creative person who balanced out my more practical nature. We dated throughout college and got married a year after graduation. Everything was perfect until my friend Tom, 32M, became a more regular part of our lives. Tom and I go way back to high school. He came from old money but never acted like it. We bonded over video games and sports, and stayed close friends even when he went to an Ivy League school while I went to state college. After graduation, he started several tech companies that really took off. He became one of those Silicon Valley success stories you read about. Despite his success, Tom stayed the same down-to-earth guy. He would come over for our weekly game nights, bring takeout when Deborah was sick, and even helped me set up my home office when I started working more hours at my accounting firm. Deborah and Tom got along great, which made me happy since he was one of my closest friends. About 6 months ago, things started changing subtly. I had taken on several big clients at work, which meant longer hours and more stress. Deborah started complaining about feeling lonely and isolated. She had quit her job at the art gallery 3 months earlier because the pay was too low, and she was still looking for something new. Tom began coming over more frequently, especially when I was working late. I actually felt grateful that she had someone to talk to during this rough patch. Last week was our anniversary. I had been working crazy hours to finish a big project, but I managed to leave early to surprise Deborah. I had bought her favorite flowers and made reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date. When I got home around 4 p.m., I noticed Tom's Tesla parked a bit down the street. I thought maybe he was helping Deborah plan something for our anniversary since they had gotten close. I entered quietly, wanting to surprise them. That's when I heard voices coming from our bedroom upstairs. I walked up slowly, and through the partially open door, I could see them sitting on our bed. They didn't notice me. Deborah was telling Tom how she had never felt this kind of passion with anyone, including me. She talked about how his lifestyle would give her everything she had dreamed of, the ability to pursue her art without worrying about money, traveling the world, living in a house with an actual art studio instead of our small spare bedroom where she currently painted. I pushed the door open and they both jumped. Deborah started crying immediately, but Tom just sat there looking guilty. I told Tom to get out and never contact me again. He left without saying a word, like a coward. Deborah tried to explain through her tears, saying she had fallen out of love with me months ago and that Tom made her feel alive again. She complained about our middle-class lifestyle, about how she was tired of counting pennies while her college friends posted photos from exotic vacations on Instagram. I couldn't stand to hear anymore. I packed a bag and went to my sister Amy's, 34F, place. Amy has always been my protector since we were kids, even though she's only 3 years older. When I told her what happened, she immediately called our parents, thinking they would want to support me. That's when things got even more complicated. My parents run a catering business they built from scratch 20 years ago. It's moderately successful, but a huge part of their income comes from corporate events they cater for Tom's family's businesses. Tom's father is on several company boards and has been recommending my parents' catering service for years. When my parents found out what happened, instead of being angry at Deborah and Tom, they started pressuring me to forgive her. My father said I needed to think about the bigger picture. He suggested that maybe I had contributed to the situation by working so much. My mother called yesterday saying Deborah had visited them, crying and promising to never see Tom again if I took her back. She claimed Tom had manipulated her with promises of a better life, and that Deborah had realized her mistake. My parents think I'm being stubborn by not giving her another chance. But I can't forget what I heard in that bedroom. The way Deborah talked about our life together, like it was some kind of prison she needed to escape from. The way she dismissed our 5 years of marriage as if it meant nothing compared to Tom's money and status. This wasn't just a moment of weakness or a one-time mistake. She had been planning this, probably for months, while I worked extra hours trying to build a better future for us. The worst part is that my own parents care more about their business connections than their son's happiness. They keep talking about forgiveness and second chances, but I know it's really about keeping their catering contracts with Tom's family. They're worried about losing their biggest client, and they're willing to sacrifice my dignity and self-respect to prevent that from happening. Amy is the only one firmly on my side. She helped me find a good divorce lawyer, and I filed the papers yesterday. Since then, Deborah has been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, alternating between begging for forgiveness and accusing me of driving her to Tom with my workaholic tendencies. My parents keep saying I'm being hasty and that I need to think about how this will affect the whole family. I've blocked Deborah's number and told my parents I need space. Right now, I'm focusing on getting through the divorce proceedings and trying to rebuild my life. I know in my heart I'm doing the right thing by ending this marriage, but it hurts that my own parents are choosing their business interests over their son's well-being. At least I have Amy in my corner. Am I wrong for not giving Deborah another chance? Should I really consider my parents' business situation in this decision? I feel like I'm the only one seeing this situation clearly. Update 1: Everything has gotten so much worse since my last post. The situation has spiraled in ways I never imagined possible. Deborah moved in with my parents last week, showing up at their doorstep late at night with several suitcases, claiming she had nowhere else to go. According to her, Tom completely ghosted her after I caught them together. She told my parents that when she went to his office to talk about their plans, his secretary wouldn't even let her in. My parents not only took her in but welcomed her with open arms. My mother actually called me the next morning to tell me how they needed to protect their future daughter-in-law during this difficult time. She said Deborah was distraught and clearly regretted her actions, and that as family, we needed to help her through this crisis. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Through Amy, who still talks to our cousin Jenny, I found out that Deborah has been spreading a completely different version of events to everyone who will listen. In her story, Tom aggressively pursued her for months, showing up at our house when I was working late, sending her expensive gifts, and constantly telling her she deserved better than her life with me. She's claiming that my constant absence and workaholic tendencies left her vulnerable to his manipulation, and that she never meant for things to go as far as they did. But the worst revelation came when I finally sat down to go through our finances in detail. While checking our joint accounts, I discovered a pattern of large transfers dating back almost 4 months. The transfers were always under $5,000, probably to avoid raising red flags, but they added up to nearly $40,000 in total. All the money went to an account I had never seen before. I confronted Deborah about this through text, and her response left me stunned. She actually admitted that Tom had helped her set up a separate account for their future together. She tried to justify it by saying she was afraid to leave our marriage with nothing, and that Tom had convinced her she needed a safety net. She even had the audacity to say she had planned to pay it back eventually. What really got to me was finding out my parents knew about the money. Deborah had apparently confided in them about the account 2 weeks ago, after Tom disappeared. They said they advised her to return the money when she realized her mistake with Tom, but they never thought to tell me about it. They kept this information from me while simultaneously pressuring me to reconcile with her. I immediately contacted my lawyer and amended the divorce filing to include financial fraud. That's when Deborah pulled her biggest manipulation tactic yet. She told my parents she's pregnant. My mother called me crying hysterically, going on about how I needed to put aside my pride and think about my child. She said this baby was a sign that Deborah and I were meant to work things out. The timing made no sense though. I've been staying at Amy's for almost a month now, and Deborah herself admitted to being with Tom for months before I caught them. When Amy pointed this out to our mother, she just said stressed women often have irregular cycles and we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, I received a message on LinkedIn from Rachel, 30F, Tom's wife. Yes, his wife. Apparently, Deborah wasn't the first, not even close. Tom had a pattern of doing this with women from his social circle. He would befriend couples, wait until the husband was busy with work or traveling, then start pursuing the wife with promises of a luxurious life. Rachel had been gathering evidence for her own divorce proceedings and offered to share everything with me and my lawyer. Rachel told me about 3 other women before Deborah, all following the same pattern. Tom would help them set up secret bank accounts, promise them a future together, then completely ghost them when things got messy. She had emails, bank records, and even text messages proving his pattern of behavior. Despite all this evidence, my parents are still firmly on Deborah's side. They're calling her a young woman who made a mistake and is now carrying their grandchild. They've even offered to help her fight the divorce and pay for her lawyer. My father had the nerve to tell me that sometimes good things come from difficult situations, and that this baby could be our chance to start fresh as a family. I've decided to go completely no contact with my parents for now. I can't deal with their betrayal on top of everything else. Amy has been amazing through all of this, helping me document everything for the divorce proceedings and letting me stay in her guest room as long as I need. She's even helping me look for my own apartment, since it's clear this situation isn't going to resolve quickly. Update 2: the truth finally came out, and it's far worse than anything I could have imagined. Rachel shared all her evidence with my lawyer last week, and what we discovered was shocking. She had emails going back over a year showing that Tom and Deborah's affair wasn't some recent development or result of my long work hours. They had been methodically planning everything from the start. The emails showed how Tom coached Deborah on manipulating both me and my parents. He advised her to start complaining about loneliness and my work hours months before they planned to run away together. He told her to be especially nice to my parents and build a strong relationship with them, knowing their business depended on his family. There were even messages where they laughed about how naive I was, thinking Tom was just being a good friend by keeping Deborah company. After we discovered these emails, my lawyer pushed for Deborah to take a pregnancy test as part of the divorce proceedings. Just as I suspected, there was no baby. When the court ordered a medical examination, Deborah tried to claim she had miscarried due to the stress of the situation. But there were no medical records to support her ever being pregnant. The whole thing was another manipulation tactic, just like everything else. This was finally enough to make my parents stop defending her. My mother came to Amy's place crying, saying she couldn't believe Deborah would lie about something as serious as pregnancy. My father looked broken when he realized how thoroughly they had been played. They apologized for not believing me, but honestly, it feels like too little, too late. The financial situation turned out to be even worse than we initially thought. Rachel's evidence helped us uncover that Tom hadn't just helped Deborah set up one secret account, there were multiple accounts spread across different banks. The total amount taken from our joint finances was actually closer to $75,000. Deborah had been moving money around in small amounts for months, always keeping the transfers under $5,000 to avoid detection. My lawyer is confident we can recover most of the money, especially now that we have Rachel's documentation showing this was part of Tom's usual pattern. She had records of him doing the same thing with other women, helping them hide money from their husbands before disappearing and leaving them to deal with the fallout. But the biggest revelation came from Amy. After seeing the pattern in Rachel's evidence, she hired a private investigator to look into Tom and Deborah's recent activities. The PI discovered they had purchased plane tickets to leave the country next month, planning to disappear before the divorce was finalized. They had it all mapped out. They would take the hidden money and start a new life somewhere else, leaving me to deal with the debt and drama they created. The PI also uncovered something that hit me particularly hard. Remember my grandmother's antique jewelry collection that Deborah claimed was stolen during a break-in last year? Turns out she had been quietly selling pieces to various pawn shops and antique dealers over the past 6 months. These were family heirlooms that had been in my family for generations. My grandmother had specifically left them to me in her will to give to my future daughter. Deborah knew how much they meant to me, but she sold them anyway. My parents have finally stopped trying to defend Deborah, but their business is suffering regardless. Rachel made sure Tom's family knew about his pattern of behavior, showing them proof of how he repeatedly used their business connections to manipulate people. Tom's family immediately cut all ties with my parents' catering service to avoid any association with the scandal. My parents are now facing serious financial difficulties, but after how they chose Deborah over me, I'm finding it hard to feel sympathetic. Deborah moved out of my parents' house the day her pregnancy lie was exposed. From what I heard through mutual friends, she's staying with her sister now. She's still trying to contact me through different people, but her story has changed yet again. Now she's claiming she was going through a mental health crisis and wasn't thinking clearly when she made all these decisions. She's telling everyone she needs help and support, not punishment. Some of our old friends are actually buying her mental health story and suggesting I should be more understanding. But the emails Rachel found show how calculated and deliberate all of this was. This wasn't a crisis or a mistake, it was a long-term plan to take advantage of me and my family, and it only fell apart because I came home early that day and caught them. Update 3: The divorce is finally over, and the judge's ruling was completely in my favor. After seeing all the evidence of Deborah's deliberate deception, the financial fraud, the fake pregnancy claim, the planned escape with Tom, and the sold family jewelry, the judge was not impressed by her attempts to play victim. She was ordered to repay everything she had taken from our joint accounts and provide documentation of all the jewelry sales so we could attempt to track down and recover the pieces. The court proceedings revealed even more about their scheme. Deborah had actually started selling the jewelry before the supposed break-in, carefully selecting pieces that I rarely looked at and wouldn't immediately notice were missing. She had taken photos of each piece before selling them, planning to have replicas made once she and Tom were settled somewhere else. She really thought this through, which makes it even more disturbing. My lawyer managed to recover about 80% of the money from the hidden accounts. We also tracked down 3 pieces of my grandmother's jewelry through the PI's investigation. The rest were apparently sold to private buyers and might be impossible to recover. Deborah was ordered to pay the appraised value of the missing pieces, which added up to nearly $30,000. Tom's life has completely fallen apart, which gives me some satisfaction. Rachel's divorce case exposed his pattern of manipulation and fraud not just to his family but to his business partners as well. His companies are under investigation for financial irregularities. Apparently, he wasn't just helping women hide money from their husbands, he was also cooking his company books. Most of his wealthy friends and business connections have cut ties with him to avoid being associated with the scandal. Deborah tried to reconnect with Tom after the divorce was finalized, probably hoping his money would make up for everything she lost in the settlement. According to mutual friends, she showed up at his office again, but his new secretary had been warned about her and called security. Tom has blocked her number and even got a restraining order when she wouldn't stop trying to contact him. My parents' business is struggling, but they're slowly rebuilding with a different clientele. They've apologized multiple times and admitted they were wrong to choose their business connections over me. My father broke down during one visit, saying he'll never forgive himself for not believing his own son. I'm civil with him now but keep my distance. Weekly family dinners are a thing of the past. Some trust was permanently broken when they sided with Deborah and kept her financial fraud secret from me. Amy continues to be my biggest supporter. She helped me find a new apartment in a different part of town and introduced me to her colleague Mark, who's become a good friend. We meet regularly for drinks and sports games, which has helped me stay social instead of withdrawing completely. His wife Lisa has also been great, and they often invite me over for dinner. Deborah made one final attempt at reconciliation last week. She somehow got my new address, I suspect my parents gave it to her, and showed up unannounced with a long letter. She claimed the letter explained everything and would help me understand her actions better. She said she had been in therapy and realized she had deep-seated issues that made her act the way she did. I returned the letter unopened and told her that if she ever showed up at my place again, I would call the police. Some mutual friends think I'm being too harsh, especially since Deborah claims to be working on herself through therapy. But I don't believe she's really changed. She's just found a new way to try to manipulate people's sympathy. She only started therapy after losing everything: Tom's money, my family's support, and most of her friends who saw through her lies. I'm not dating yet and honestly don't plan to for a while. This experience has taught me a lot about trust and family loyalty. I'm focusing on my career and recently received a promotion at work, partly because my boss recognized how professional I stayed during all the personal drama. I've started taking some evening classes in financial planning, something I always wanted to do but put off while trying to build a life with Deborah. Life isn't perfect, but it's peaceful without all the lies and manipulation. I'm learning to trust my instincts more. Looking back, there were red flags I ignored because I wanted to believe the best about people I loved. I won't make that mistake again.